You are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Some rich people start foundations or charities. Tim and I think that's a good thing. What about you? Now, if you are a profitable entrepreneur or intend to be one, this show is for you. My guest, Tim Salmonson, advocates for social economic enterprise. In fact, after years in missionary work, putting on what he calls Band-Aids on social issues, he decided there must be a better way. Tim had an epiphany. He realized that businesses serving in the marketplace have the human and financial capital to fill in the gaps in society where the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health of people and the well-being of the planet was being overlooked. And so making money for the sake of making money might make you richer and richer, but what if your brand had a noble purpose? So Tim Salmonson is a brand coach, an author, a missionary, but most of all, he's my friend. Tim, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure, Trudy.
Fantastic. So we're going to be talking about your book today, Brand Evangelism. Attract, inspire, and engage your audience. A leader's guide to clarify and communicate personal and organizational purpose. I read this book. It's a very good read. I left an Amazon review, guys. It's an excellent read, and I took notes. I mean, literally, I have made notes for me to go and add some stuff to my website based on what I found in this book. So, Tim, even though we're friends, and we generally agree, I'm actually going to kick this chat off with an area that I think we disagree. So I'm going to first read something out of your book, and then I'm going to highlight the quote I'm talking about, and then we'll talk about that, okay? So in the book, you talk about your journey, or my journey. Admittedly, I'm a bleeding heart idealist. That's true. And I receive a fair amount of criticism because of it. I wouldn't say that I look through the world through rose-colored glasses, but I have always expected the best of people. I have always expected the best of people. I believe that everyone deserves our trust until they demonstrate they're not worthy of it. So, Tim, these are the pieces of this that I disagree with. I have always expected the best of people. I believe that everyone deserves our trust until they demonstrate they're not worthy of it. Before I tell you why, defend yourself.
Well, I think that when we go through life and we're connecting with people, people enter our lives, people leave our lives, it's important to hold a space for everyone so that you can get a sense and judge if this is a safe person. And that is what you base trust on. If you believe that everyone is safe until they demonstrate to you that they're not safe, and that happens in a number of ways. The way they talk about other people, you know they talk about you that way. The way they interact with you, their body language, their eye contact. There are a lot of ways to determine whether someone is a safe person or not. And I always believe that it's important to be curious, ask questions first to try to determine why someone may not be making eye contact or why they are put off by you, because it may not have anything to do with you, but some other experience that they had with someone like you. So that's why I think it's important to trust people.
So in other words, when you meet a stranger, you immediately just receive them as a good person worthy of trust until they show you otherwise?
Correct.
I'm the opposite. I do not expect good from people, and I do not give them the space to trust until they prove they're worthy of trust. And here's why I am that way, Tim. The Bible in Romans 3:10 through 12 says, "None is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one." So for me, I start off with, a lot of people have, there was a philosopher, I forgot his name right now, but people are generally good. I do not believe that people are generally good. I hold to what the Bible says, that none are good. And so I start off with that none are good. And until you show me you're worthy of being trusted, you won't even have the opportunity to hurt me for me to then say you're not worthy of me continuing to trust you. So I'm the opposite. And this is why it's not, and I had to change because I used to feel that way, but I changed based on what the Bible says. So are we still holding to this, or?
Oh yeah, no, we're totally holding. I agree with you 100% that there are none that are good. That doesn't mean that we are to be suspicious about people's intentions at the onset. If we don't learn to trust is the thing that's going to create the opportunity for the iron sharpening iron. It's going to create the space for you to be able to connect with people. If you never trust anyone, it's really hard to connect with humanity. So my view of the world is that it's our responsibility and it's God's design for us to be connected in community.
I agree.
So that is why I am curious before I am judgmental.
So I wouldn't say I'm judgmental. I think of it, so like my heart has a filter. Okay, and so it's like layers. So I will receive you and I will be gracious and I will be kind, but I will be guarded. And you don't get past layer 1 until I observe you at that level. So people get, I'm not saying I'm going to, oh, I don't like you. No. But I'm not going to trust you and let you open my front door and let you in just because. I don't do that. I am very guarded, and people have to go through layers with me. So I start off with, let me see what this chick's about. Let me see what this guy's about before I get to that level. That's just me.
Yeah.
We don't have to agree on that, but...
Yeah, no, I totally agree that there are, none of us are good, that the only thing that makes us good is by the redemption that God made available to us through Christ. But I believe that, like Paul said, to be all things to all people so that by all possible means they might know him.
I agree.
I am trying to be an ambassador and open the space to connect with humanity, connect with men and women that come into my life, and sometimes it's scary.
Yeah.
But I believe that there's a big payoff when we extend trust to more people.
So I think we're not really totally in disagreement, but probably just the perspective we're coming from. So I think what you just said, it sounds like we kind of agree, just maybe the angle we take it from. All right. So Tim, you lived in the DR, Dominican Republic, for 3 to 4 years, I think. Do you speak Spanish?
Sí, claro. 100%.
Oh, an excellent and useful skill to have, that's for sure. All right, now the awakening, you in your book. So guys, I'm quoting some section of Tim's book because, you know, some things just have to be said. So you had this epiphany. Tell us about the epiphany. I won't read it. You tell us about this epiphany.
Yeah, so, you know, I grew up in a good Christian family and always felt this need to do good in the world. After living in the Dominican Republic, I started my own nonprofit and took my little band out into the world, over 30 countries, trying to make the world a better place. That's, you know, what you read already. What I realized after about 10 years, that we were putting Band-Aids on these social issues, that if businesses thought about what their noble purpose is, what their contribution to their community is, they could fill in the spaces that our little entourage was not able to do. I mean, we would literally show up after the tsunami and help build an orphanage or help with wells or, you know, help with a hospital. But we were there just for a few weeks, didn't have the long-term sustainable relationships, which is what is required for any kind of meaningful transformation in any of our lives. And that's why, you know, the epiphany was partly to do with the fact when I went to grad school, I had people in my class that were international students who really looked down on this idea of international missions.
Oh, wow.
And so they challenged me to think about, you know, the fact that a lot of these groups go in with great intentions, but they cause more harm than good. And so I began to think about, okay, is that what we're doing? I don't believe that we were. because I was very intentional about the relationship, and we never started projects. It was always in partnership with the nationals. But
there are some that do.
There are many that do.
And it leaves a bad thing. So I'm agreeing with you on that. I also have a nonprofit, and I'm not very active in it, but the goal of it was to create community conscious corporations. And I think that, in my own organization, we definitely support young people. We go into schools and stuff like that. I agree with you. So give a call out and a call to action to someone who's watching, who is, I don't know if they have to be Christian minded or not, but what does that look like? What does that look like?
Well, no matter what business you're in, and it just could be very philanthropic and socially minded, or it could be just profit driven. You always start with your values. Once a business figures out what their values, and they're communicating that to the world, if you have, now this is the differentiator, if you have a noble purpose and your values are in alignment with this noble purpose, you are going to draw the people who share your values and who believe in your noble purpose. And we're talking like brands like Tom's Shoes or Warby Parker, which is an eyeglass company. They're very socially minded. The Patagonia, cares deeply about the environment. So they have a following. They have people that are crazy about the brand because of what the brand represents and their contribution to the world. I mean, like Ben & Jerry's ice cream is another brand that fits in that mold. Now they've been bought out, just a FYI. They're no longer owned by
the original.
Yeah.
Okay. But so in other words, the noble purpose is probably where some organizations need to start. Because based on my doctoral research, which was a conversation for another day, so many companies, they get into business and they don't necessarily consider a noble purpose when they're just like, let me just make some money.
Exactly.
They give themselves a job, if you want to call it that. So that may be where they start. So if your organization already has a noble purpose, then you will get more out of this book if you have that mindset. If you don't already have that mindset, that may be where you need to start. If stop looking necessarily so much self-serving. And then that brings me to a point that I hadn't considered before, Tim. There are companies that want to appear as if. So they'll go and they'll have the big $1 million check and they have the publicity and all of that.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that was the reason.
Right.
It was not really the noble purpose. So I really think maybe what we need to do is to kind of get a little bit deeper into this noble purpose.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So that's called greenwashing, and you can identify greenwashing, the idea that people are appearing to be philanthropic or care about their community. The truth is that they're trying to cover up a whole multitude of sins with regards to how they actually conduct business. A great example, I won't use a name, but there's a cosmetic company, a big cosmetic company, that supports breast cancer awareness and research. The problem with that company, I mean, it makes sense. They're working with women, but they actually produce products that are contributing to breast cancer instead of living out their noble purpose. Another good example would be CVS, who had the pressure put on them about selling cigarettes. Their mantra was, we care about people's health. But they sold cigarettes like all the drugstores do. And they made a commitment. They decided that they were going to get rid of the cigarettes out of there and replace cigarettes with the nicotine patches and the programs that help people get off of cigarettes.
But even cigarette companies spend money on fixing you, those fund other things. So so that's like the greenwashing versus the true heart desire to serve.
Correct.
Okay, all right, we're on the same page on that. So then what is that? What is the solution? What is the solution to, instead of Band-Aids, what does that look like? What is this solution instead of Band-Aids?
So it's the long-term commitment. It's like I'm saying, it's a solution for all of poverty. My definition of poverty is It's broken relationships. It's not about the lack of things. It's the fact that you don't have access to the people that can help you on your journey out to break outside of the poverty trap. So if you or I were to lose everything, hurricane came through and blew away our homes, our cars, somehow all of our finances were just evaporated into the ether, we would be able to call people and have a place to stay the same night. We'd probably have a job within a week or so, and our lives would get back on track very quickly. That's not the case with people who are stuck in the poverty trap. They need those sustainable relationships to help them move up and out of that situation. So it's the same with businesses. If they are committed in those sustainable kind of relationships to the noble purpose of whatever that is, now they are inviting people to be a part of. When I think of like Tom's shoes, they don't just give a pair of shoes to someone who buys a pair of shoes, the one for one model. They actually have invited people, their stakeholders, people who love the brand, to go and be participate in handing out shoes, which just helps people to feel that much more connected to the brand.
In Jamaica, I'm originally from Jamaica, for those of you who don't know. In Jamaica, we would say good friend better than pocket money. Good friends are better than money in your pocket a lot of the times. And you're right, because those relationships, it does make a difference. And like even big brother, big sister close, just the fact that you have that person who's looking out for you that can make connections, you're right. So, all right. Very good. So, Tim, your book, Brand Evangelism, A Leader's Guide to Clarify and Communicate Personal and Organizational Purpose. Well written, thoughtful, very complete. I believe it's an excellent read, inspirational, altruistic, full of next step suggestions. It's not just talk. They were like, do this, step one. There were like literally steps and suggestions in there. Now, experts like you are the reason why I do what I do, Tim, honestly, because I love to expose the hidden treasures. There are people out there desperate for inspiration, for direction. And your book, you also share 4 brand philosophies. We're not going to give them away, but because we do want people to read the book. But you know what they are. Of the 4 brand philosophies, which in your opinion is the most important? If we walked away with just one right now, what would it be?
Obviously the covenant brand philosophy, which is what the foundation of the book is, and the foundation of being a purpose-driven brand. The idea is that covenant is a commitment to mutual success. It's like Stephen Covey's win-win or no deal. We're not going to do business with people that don't see the value in the relationship. We have, as our good friend Myron Golden talks about, a contract is done because you don't trust the person. A covenant is done because you do, and you're committed to the success of this person. So to have a covenant mindset means that you're committed to the success of the people that you're working with, whether that's your employees, your other key stakeholders, like people who help finance your business, the community that you work in, your obviously customers and clients. So that's the covenant brand philosophy that I'm trying to share with the world.
I think that's a great way to approach not just a purpose, but a noble purpose. Now, you in the book gave 3 different definitions for the word brand. What's your definition of brand? What is a brand?
A brand is it's basically your identity. It's not the identity that you create. It's the actual response from the people in the world around us, that when they see you and when they see your logo, your color scheme, your website, they have a feeling, a connection with. So we can't really create a brand, especially if we're incongruent or inconsistent with the person that we want to be perceived as and the person that we are perceived as. So a brand is the person that we are perceived as. And that's why people put so much money. That's why you can take sugar water and have it associated with refreshment and Christmas and family time, because Coca-Cola has done a great job of connecting their product with these amazing experiences in our lives.
I agree, and I think we need to just kind of stress that a little bit more, because a lot of people have the misconception that their brand is their logo or the visual elements of their organization. And that is where, my husband and I always talk about, you can have a Christian in business and you can have a Christian business. And there's like an organization, won't name the name, but they have the Jesus fish on their vehicles. But then the staff step out and they start to cuss and smoke and everything. And so, while that doesn't mean they're not a Christian company, because they're hiring whoever they're hiring. But the brand is challenged when you want to appear as a brand that is a brand connected with the faith, and then you have that kind of thing, that's that disconnect. So that's what Tim said right there. So Tim, next question for you. You mentioned in your book about growing the pie. And a lot of people talk about their slice of the pie, their piece of the pie. And you talk about growing the pie. And to me, a pie represents a market as a zero-sum game. You have your piece, I have my piece, and there's no pieces left. Kind of like a zero-sum game. I don't really see the market as a pie at all. So while growing the pie sounds like a great solution, I really don't see or believe in the existence of a pie at all. But anyway, there are people who do. Now, for those who do believe in the pie and want their slice of it, growing the pie definitely allows for more pieces or a bigger piece. So since you seem to believe in the existence of a pie, how do you propose we grow this said pie?
Well, to me, the pie is the opportunity to create value in the world. You take a brand like Apple. And Apple, before Apple existed, there weren't half the things that Apple has created for the world. So Apple creates a phone, as other brands have, but for that phone, there are apps that need to be developed for the phone. That helps to expand the pie. There are protection devices, cases, that creates another space that helps to grow the pie that didn't exist before, because this thing didn't exist before. So the idea of growing the pie, it's not that I agree with you 100% that when it comes to the marketplace, we are in a garden and not in a bakery. So I agree with you 100%, Trudy. The only reason that I introduced the idea of the pie and expanding or growing the pie, instead of having this limited idea of taking our portion as much as we can out of the pie, is I think that's how most people see the marketplace, and they're concerned. They feel like these greedy people are taking the biggest portions of this pie and leaving us nothing, which is not the mentality that's going to help us, to help everybody. And that's why I introduced the idea of growing the pie. But I do. But
I think it's right to say it the way you did, because it gives the imagery that helps people to understand what you're going for. Because for me to have arrived at this position, it was not that I didn't start out with a pie mindset. Let me just tell you that. So the pie mindset was where I started, and as my own personal development. But what I do want to say on this, as you talked about, so when Apple came in, there was no pie. They created a pie, and the pie keeps growing. And if we all think about our businesses that way, for every solution we create, there are actually more solutions that need to be created. So when Apple created the phone, it created the necessity for the protection of the phone. It created the necessity for the apps for the phone. So if you think about the solutions that we're bringing to the market, every solution can in itself drive a bigger economy, a bigger scale, a bigger market within itself. Exactly. Is that what we're talking about here?
Exactly. It's back to the idea of the market is actually a garden, and we are planting seeds.
Yes.
And when the fruit of the garden, once again, I'm thinking, it's crazy to think that you understand how many
seeds are seeds in an apple, but not apple.
Yeah, how many apples in a seed, exactly.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about. the apples in the seed and not the seeds in the apple. It's one of us is a kind of a constricted, limited, lack mentality, that there is only so much that can go around. The other is an unlimited mentality, that there's plenty for everyone if we are just finding our way to contribute, plant our seeds, connect with other people.
All right, so you talk about 4 elements of impact. And guys, let me tell you, look at this. I don't know if it will show up on the camera, but I had to make a note to myself to check my website to make sure I've addressed these 4 elements of impact. If you get nothing else out of the book, I thought this was like super cool. Again, brand evangelism. If your organization is not answering these questions, we already, I mean, I believe I do, but it's important enough for me, and I literally extracted it from this book, and there are many worthy things. I promise you, this is a book you want to read, and maybe even consult with Tim to have him look over. He's done it for me before. He's looked over some of my stuff and said it wasn't simple enough, it wasn't obvious. And it's like, for the person who is outside of your organization looking in, does your message, is it understandable? So this is the brand evangelist, and he can help you look over your stuff. So whether you read the book and or connect with Tim, I tell you, there are things you're going to walk away with and like, I need to implement this right away. That's what this book is. So do you want to say anything about that before I move on?
I think once again, Myron talks about purpose as the intersection of your passion and your proficiency. And a lot of people are not working on either. They're just launching something out into the world instead of getting really good at something and doing something that's they're very passionate and energized by. So I just shared this with a group of guys that I was talking to last night. And if you think about what you're good at, your proficiency, and you can increase the value you're creating in the market, and if it's something that energizes you, that you're passionate about, that's the intersection of where purpose really, really happens.
I believe in done is better than perfect. So I am not necessarily waiting for proficiency to put stuff out there, to be honest. I'm willing to tweak and go back and edit if necessary. So if you go back through the history of my stuff, the growth is kind of obvious because things have gotten better over time.
Yeah.
But yes, okay, so great. Now you talk about in your book aspirational identity. What is aspirational identity?
So this is one of the parts of our jobs if we're in the marketplace trying to provide value for people. It's either solving a problem that someone has that they have extreme pain about, or it is helping them to achieve the aspirational identity, meaning the person that they want to have, do and have. So if you think about, for us, our aspirational identity should be to be living a life of purpose, where we're living out our passions and getting better and growing and becoming more of who the person that God wants us to be. And the aspirational identity for our client, if you haven't identified their pain, then you can speak to their aspiration and who they want to become, how they want to show up in the world, the impact that they want to make. I mean, this is my world. So a lot of people don't really think about aspirational identity, but hopefully we all have something that we're aspiring to that's better than who we are today.
I agree. You also talk about business as a mission, and I think it's coming out a little bit of that. And you say if you care about how you'll be remembered, talk about business as a mission.
Sure. Well, this is a movement. It's BAM, business as a mission. And the idea being that we're not just in business to make money. We're not just trying to feed our children.
The business with a noble purpose, that is.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I would advocate, I would say that if you serve people well, if you do it with a mission mindset, the mission includes the betterment of people on the planet, then you're going to, as a byproduct of serving people well and staying true to your mission, that's going to be what makes you extremely profitable. So that's why business's mission should be a shift for all of us. And our mission is never about selling a product or service. It's always about creating value and solving problems for people.
And on that note, what is a healing organization? Does it even exist?
So,
and I'm not talking about doctors' offices and hospitals.
Right.
Because that was not in your book. What is the healing organization?
So that comes out of the conscious capitalism movement, which was started by the Whole Foods guy. He's not coming to mind right now, but he created what is now the conscious capitalism movement, and the idea being that your organization can help alleviate suffering, elevate joy, and find profitable solutions to the problems of people on the planet. That is the healing that he's talking about, is addressing the suffering of people. That's their pain point. Elevating joy, that's helping them achieve that aspirational identity. And then doing that by looking at solving the problems that people on the planet have, instead of looking at what product or service can I throw at them to help them. I mean, a candy bar might help you elevate joy to a certain extent, but it's not sustainable, and in the long run, it's probably not great for you.
So this is where I think that when organizations get very profitable, that really, I celebrate those that form foundations and charities, because it's not so much about giving back, well, giving back concept, but it's about, you know, that profit is doing good in the world beyond just fattening your pockets, that you're sharing that profit in a productive, useful, long-term benefit to others who are less fortunate. Right. So that's amazing. Well, Tim, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
The reason I wrote this book is, obviously I'm passionate about helping people and want to make the world a better place. The way it was written is to be kind of like a guidebook, and Trudy alluded to it briefly, but every chapter has a lot of questions that pertain to the content, but then there's an application portion. So it could be used as a guide, a workbook that you could go through with your company, your organization, to just think about the 5 C's. We didn't really talk about them, but that is just clarify your noble purpose, to be able to communicate that to the world so people know what your noble purpose is, to connect with your tribe, your audience, your community, to make your contribution. So we want to create trust and build rapport with people by making contributions. And then the call to action, which is asking people to become brand evangelists, raving fans of your brand because they believe in your noble purpose.
There you have it, folks. Tim Salmonson, Attract, Inspire, and Engage Your Audience, Brand Evangelism, a leader's guide to clarify and communicate personal and organizational purpose. Get yourself a copy. If you want to connect with Tim beyond just watching the show and getting his book, you can check out socialessent.com, and I will put the spelling of that in the credits to make sure you find the exact correct spelling and website. Tim, thank you so much for being my guest today.
That was a pleasure. Thanks, Trudy.